Je vous remercie, Madame Motet.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Motet, for your contribution and for your very frank and clear statement.
Floor to the last speaker of the first panel, Mr. Joe McNamee from European Digital Rights.
Thank you very much. I've got so many things to say about what was just said that I can't even begin. I was, however, fascinated by the concept of transposer au reste du monde, to transpose our legislation onto the rest of the world. How dare they accuse ACTA of being anti-democratic? So, to begin with, thank you very much for the invitation from the Civil Liberties Committee and from Mr. Drutzas to speak to you today on the question of the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement. European Digital Rights is an association of 32 digital civil rights organisations from 20 European countries, and we've been following ACTA for a very long time. To set the scene, the European Union is founded on values such as the respect of freedom, democracy and the rule of law. Restrictions on fundamental rights must be provided for by law and must be necessary and genuinely meet the objectives of general interest. The failure to respect these obligations in ACTA are the clearest of all of the breaches of the Charter of Fundamental Rights. Article 27.3 places a binding international legal obligation on all parties to encourage private companies to police online communications. This binding legal obligation would, for example, require the United States to encourage companies under its jurisdiction to effectively enforce trademark and copyright law. So who are these companies that would be encouraged by the United States to enforce the law? They're companies like VeriSign that run the central registry for all .com domain names globally. They're the global search engines like Bing, Yahoo and Google. They're the advertising networks, also Google being an example. They're the payment service providers like Visa and MasterCard and PayPal. US companies would be voluntarily and unpredictably enforcing US laws around the globe. We know about this danger already because the US already uses US companies to obtain personal data of European citizens in breach of our fundamental right to privacy. They do this via the Patriot Act and the FISA Act, and the European Parliament had a very interesting debate on this very subject in February of this year. The EPP coordinator, who's unfortunately not here, Mr. Busuttil, I thought captured the views of MEPs from across the political spectrum during that debate when he said that no law of a third country should be able to short-circuit EU or national law. In this context, imagine adopting an international agreement to place an obligation on the United States to encourage private companies to short-circuit our rights to privacy, freedom of communication and freedom to do business. The fact that this is even being suggested by the European Commission is shocking. VeriSign, the US company that is the global registry of .com domain names, has already requested the right unilaterally to remove .com domain names globally if it feels that this is necessary. Should we encourage the United States to encourage them to do this? Clearly the answer is no. We know the answer is no because the European Parliament has twice in the last 3 years passed resolutions saying that this shouldn't happen. It's already happened that an American reseller of .com domain names has voluntarily eliminated a Spanish company from the Internet, even though that company was never accused of breaking the law. It did so because the European company was on an official watch list of the US government. Could it be legal for the European Union to facilitate such short circuits of European democratic rights, privacy rights, and the right to do business? You may not know this, but Google already enforces US copyright law globally. When they receive a complaint under US law about a website that is allegedly in breach of the law in the United States, they remove the website from their global search engine, outside the rule of law and outside due process. What should we do? Should we complain or should we place an obligation on the United States to encourage other US companies to place similar restrictions on European citizens outside the rule of law? And whatever one thinks about WikiLeaks, the fact is that that organisation was never accused of committing a crime. However, Visa, MasterCard and PayPal, acting under political pressure, all blocked payment processing to that organisation. What will the increased political pressure on US companies to police the internet do for legal certainty of European companies and citizens? How much self-censorship is needed to be sure not alone that you're not breaking European law, but also not breaking US law, and also not breaking the law as enforced by VeriSign, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, and so on? That's the problem within the European Union, but we should also think about the inevitable impact of ACTA in third countries. The European Union has a treaty obligation to uphold democracy and the rule of law in its international relations. In a developing country, with the ACTA signatory government obliged to encourage privatised enforcement, internet companies would be coerced into implementing restrictions of freedom of communication due to the cumulative effect of broad criminal sanctions for aiding and abetting infringements, the threat of excessive damages, and the high cost of fighting injunctions. And finally, the safeguards. There is almost no provision in any part of ACTA that would require a party to implement any protective measure whatsoever. Despite proposing measures that pose risks to fundamental rights, ACTA only says that existing law may be respected. ACTA never mentions fundamental rights. It refers to the vague concept of fundamental principles. ACTA does not mention due process of law. It refers to the entirely fictional and made up for the purpose fundamental principle of fair process that exists nowhere in international law. So, in answer to the question, does ACTA breach fundamental rights? Yes, and obviously yes. Thank you.